Abba, my Father, I just want to thank you for this day, and I just want to thank you for who you are, and I want to thank you for what you are doing in this hour. Thank you for this wonderful feast time that we found ourselves in, where you chose to come and tabernacle with us. And thank you that this has been a time that as we set ourselves apart in this time, and as we are wanting to draw closer to you and wanting to draw ourselves into this place of where we can seek your face, and that we can come and tabernacle with you, as if there was a time that you were to be, when you came to dwell upon the earth, it was at the time of tabernacles. You were not born on the 25th of December, which is when the whole world wants to celebrate your birthday. But the reason why this feast is called the Feast of Tabernacles is because you came to tabernacle. And you will come again to tabernacle with us on the earth. And then we will be taken into a time of a wonderful wedding feast with you. And how we look forward to that, my King. And that is why we keep these feasts as a foreshadow, as a playing out of the things that is to come. And so I thank you, Father, for this time of this feast that we found ourselves in, and a joyous occasion, and even how my heart breaks when I think that right now in the land of Israel, it's not such a joyous occasion. As we do not have all the music through the streets and all the celebrations and all the activities that are going on, and the busyness of the nations coming up to celebrate this feast of Sukkot. And where instead it's a time of when they are going to do great introspection, when they are in the solitary confinement of their houses, as they are in a severe lockdown right now. But I ask you, Father, that in this time, for those who are truly seeking your face, for those who are truly bowing their knee and coming before you and making themselves reflect on what have they done in all the previous years, in all their celebrations, what have they done? Was it really about you? And how they now find themselves without their big gatherings and without all their friends and families from overseas, and where they've made it about entertainment and they've made it about everything else. But have they really focused on who you are? And so I thank you, Father, that you've given them this time of silence, where they've got enough time now, in this time of their lockdown, where they are in the cleft of a rock, to, like Moses when he was in the cleft of the rock, that he said, show me your face, show me your glory. And I pray that in this time, Father, that we ourselves will be able to cry out to you and say, show us your face, show us your glory. As we are in a time of when your fire is being unleashed, in a time of where you are raising up one and bringing judgment upon another. And in this day of where we're going to be able to speak about the grapes, and the significance of the grapes, and the significance of the wine, and what the wine symbolizes. Abba, I pray that there will be a deeper revelation of what we will understand of that which you are seeking for in this hour. Because it's all great and well for us to be able to say that we are the bride. It's all great and well for us to presume, because of the teachings that we have been given, where we're all believers and therefore we're all the bride. But that is so far from the truth of your word. And now is the hour, Father, where you are wanting to remove the scales from our eyes, where you are going to be able to bring us into a place of where we can understand that we need to drink from the truth of your word. And we need to be those that need to be shaken from our spiritual slumber and sleep. And where we now need to wake up because this is an hour of a waking up, and where we can no longer make excuses for our doctrines of demons, of the wine that we have drank from the cup of the harlot. We do not want to be a harlot bride, but we want to be a bride that can drink from the new wine that you have for us to drink. And so I thank you, Father, that you would open up this word to us. Father, that you will give me the revelation of the understanding of your word in order for me to be able to impart it. That will be a revelation that comes from your heart. Father, not from my mind, but from your heart. Father, teach us what it means to truly go deeper with you, to be able to have you give us the meat of the word, so that it may nourish us, and so that it may set us free. And so I thank you, Abba Yahuwah, that you alone will be able to come and break open your word for us to be able to understand the deeper revelations that we need. But Father, I pray that we will not be like those rebellious children of Israel that will hear and hear and hear and not put into practice. But that we will be those that will shama, that we will hear and we will obey. And so I praise and I thank you for this in Yahushua's name. Amen. Amen. So we are in our series of talking about the fruits of the 7 species of the land. And the fruit that we are going to cover today, which I can tell you now, I will not finish because I'm not going to rush it, because this is very deep. And we need to understand the deeper revelation of what the Father is trying to reveal to us by this grapes. And our Bible is filled with scriptures that talk about a wine pressing and talks about the wine. And we have a mindset of this wine. And now is a time and an hour that we need to be able to come to the revelation of truth, because for too long his people have learned lies. But now is the hour of truth having to be revealed. And so we are going to be able to unfold, as I'm wanting to cover different sections of this teaching for us to understand what is this wine. Not just that the Bible talks about wine and we understand in our mindset what wine is, because the way we understand wine today, I promise you as I sit over here right now, is not the wine of the Bible. Because we did not have the level of fermentation of where wine is being made today in a way that they did not make wine in that time. And that is why we have great confusion amongst us. In the church, in the body of the believers of Torah, amongst the Jews. And the time has come that we need to be able to understand truth. Because there's only one truth. And it's that truth that is going to set us free. And so the Father is really wanting us to be able to open up this revelation of understanding this grapevine, because it starts in the beginning. Right in the beginning, we understand already a destructive thing that has happened with a vine. So we're going to start in the beginning, and we're going to start with Genesis chapter 9. So we're going to look at the grape and understanding the Hebrew word in grape is anav. And we're going to look deeper into this word anav next week. And then wine in Hebrew is yayin. And the problem that we have is even when our concordances were translated, when these words were translated from the concordance, even that word will tell you all the time that it is a wine that is a fermented wine. But that's why today we need to go a little bit deeper to understand, is it really this fermented wine or not? So we are going to start in Genesis chapter 9, and we are going to look at what happened with Noah. And right in the beginning in Genesis, we know Noah was a righteous man. Noah was perfect. Noah walked with Yahuwah. So when we understand perfection, then we understand, well, if he was perfect, he shouldn't have sinned. But perfection doesn't mean without sin. And that's what we must understand. Only Yahushua was without sin. So when it talks about him being righteous, means he was right standing with the Father in keeping his instructions and his obedience to him. And he walked with him. And he was perfect in where he was coming into that place of where he was walking with the Father, being obedient to the Father. But it doesn't say that he was without flaws. And so, in verse 20 it says, and Noah, a man of the soil, began and planted a vineyard. Now, there we go. We see him. He's planting a vineyard. Nothing wrong with planting a vineyard. And he drank the wine and was drunk and became uncovered in his tent. Now that is where the problem came in. He planted the vineyard, but somewhere already from what he was taught before the flood, he had been taught how to make wine. And who taught him to be able to do that? Because already from that time, there were the fallen angels that came to be able to teach many things to mankind that was not the Father's way. Because you must understand something. For you to make wine, you need to add yeast. Look at now when we were not able to get, when people were not able to get, when they were not able to have alcohol, when all the bottle stores were closed. Your people learned to make their own beer, and all of a sudden you couldn't find packets of yeast because they were using the yeast to be able to make their beer. With pineapple juice, with whatever it was that they were using, they were making their own alcohol. So isn't it amazing? Look and see how in our DNA is already the corrupt seed of Hasatan. And if you think of what leaven represents in the Bible, what does it represent? Sin. So here we see, already with Noah, sin, this is a brand new, hello, we've just started with a brand new creation right from the beginning. And yes, to show you that sin has already come in. Because the serpent seed is going to be there. And understand, this is for us to see that each one of us has a choice to make whether we're going to allow the serpent seed to get the better of us or not. And so here we see Noah was a righteous man. Noah walked with the Father. But Noah allowed himself to do already something that was now going to already contaminate. And from something so foolish, an entire nation of people is going to get cursed. Because if we look and see, and he drank of the wine and was drunk and became uncovered. Now that is something you must make a note of. When we become drunk, we become uncovered. The enemy uncovers us because he was a righteous man. He was perfect. He walked with the Father. But now he's been uncovered. His nakedness has been exposed. So what does drunkenness do to us? It uncovers us from walking perfect, from walking righteous, from walking with Yahuwah. Do you see? Because it uncovers you. And what does it do? It exposes your sinful nature. So instead of you walking in the nature of Abba Yahuwah, it uncovers you to walk in the sinful nature of Hasatan. And we let down our guard. And we go into our flesh. And then what does our flesh do? Our flesh sins. And that is why we will have a struggle. Because right here, remember, this is a new generation that has started. But already sin has been exposed. And now there's 3 sons. But look and see what happens. And it says, and Ham, the father of Canaan, saw the nakedness of his father and told his 2 brothers outside. So he looks upon the nakedness of his father, and instead of him going to cover his nakedness, he exposes his father's sin to his brothers. And that is what we do. We expose each other's sinfulness. We expose each other's nakedness. Because when we sin, we become uncovered. People look upon us, and then someone goes and tells someone else, and they uncover you. So we see the sin, right from the beginning. And this is how we behave. Don't think we're void of this. We are all guilty of it, because we all do it. We're all guilty. The first thing you want to do when you see someone do wrong is the first thing you want to do is go tell someone else and say, look what that one did. That's exactly what Canaan did. But Canaan had an option. He had a choice right there. He could have just covered his father's nakedness, seen that he was drunk and covered his father's nakedness, not have gone and told his brothers. But now the brothers are also aware of the father's sin. And now look at what happens. And he says, so Shem and Japheth took a garment and laid it both on their shoulders and went backwards. So they didn't look at the father's nakedness, because according to Torah, if you look at the nakedness of your parent, you bring a curse upon yourself. Then people want to turn around and say, oh, but the Torah wasn't there already from the time of Noah. How could the Torah not have been there? If in the Torah it says, if you look upon the nakedness of your mother or your father, a curse will come upon you. So we are not to look upon the nakedness of our parents. Unless it's that they're sick and you've got no other option. But I mean, me as a child, I don't know about you, but me as a child, it was a big sin in my house. If we were to come and look upon the nakedness of our parents, we were not allowed. Never. But now in the day and age that we're living in, parents are bathing with their children. Parents walk around naked with the children looking at everything, because we expose our nakedness, because that's the immorality and the sexuality that is in the world right now. There is no more covering. There is exposing. And now there is curse. And that is why we are under such a severe curse. And parents nowadays think it's so cute to have the baby go and bath with the parent, and then the little children bathing with the parents, and there's nothing to it. But in the day of the Bible, that's why if we return back to Torah, we understand truth. And we do not reap curses upon ourselves. And this is exactly what happened here. Because here you've seen, Shem and Japheth took a garment, laid it on both their shoulders, and walked backwards and covered the nakedness of their father. But their faces were turned away, and they did not see their father's nakedness. So there was no curse that came upon Japheth, and there was no curse that came upon Shem by what happened. And Noah awoke from his wine, and he knew what his youngest son had done to him. So even in his drunkard state, he knew that he had walked in on him. Because even in his drunkard state, he must have seen what did Canaan do, and then he must have seen maybe his two brothers. Because when we get drunk, it's not to say that we're not in our senses. Sometimes we still sort of like know what's going on. You might be in a drunkard thing, but you're sort of like seeing in a dwell, in the dways, in a whatever, but you're sort of like still sort of semi-conscious. You're not fully conscious, but you're semi-conscious. And now look at what happens. And he awoke from his wine, and he knew what his younger son had done to him. And he said, "Cursed is Canaan. Let him become a servant of servants to his brothers." So now look how interesting this is. Does he curse Ham? He cursed his seed. He cursed Ham's seed. Because at the end of the day, if he had cursed Ham, all of Ham's generation would have been cursed. But he didn't curse Ham. He cursed his firstborn son. And the firstborn son was Canaan. And isn't it interesting? Israel was known as the land of Canaan. And Canaan was going to become the slaves to who? To Shem, whom he promised, because the promise came through Shem. Listen to what he says. And he blessed, and he said, "Blessed be Yahuwah, the Eloah of Shem, and let Canaan become his servant." So Canaan was going to become the servant of Shem. And the Eloah enlarged Japheth, and let him dwell in the tents of Shem, and let Canaan become his servant. So Shem, through the bloodline of Shem, is the seed of promise going to come. Not through Japheth, not through Canaan, not through Ham, but through Shem. And that is why, if you look at Abraham, Abraham was the 10th generation that came down from Shem. And from Abraham became Abraham, Isaac, Yaakov. And Abraham becoming the father of many nations. But the bloodline came down from who? It came down from Shem. And interesting how he curses Canaan. And if you look and see, who were the children of Canaan? Go look there in verse 15 of chapter 10. It says, "And Canaan brought forth Sidon, the firstborn, and Heth, and Jebusite, and Amorite, and Gerashite, and Hivite, and Akite, and Sinite." And then if you look, and the border of Canaanites was Sidon towards Gerar, as far as Azah, and you go towards Sodom, and Amorah, and Admah, and Sibium, as far as Lasha. So there do you see all those ites that Israel was fighting up against. Hey? All of the father's enemies. Because a man got drunk, and he looked upon, then Ham looked upon his father's nakedness, uncovered him, and now an entire generation is cursed, which is today the land of Israel. And all these ites that they kept fighting were the enemies of Abba Yahuwah because of this curse. Because it's interesting, if you look and see that Ham had another son, Cush, and he had Mitzrayim, and he had Put and Canaan. So he didn't curse Cush, he didn't curse Mitzrayim, he didn't curse Put, he cursed Canaan and Canaan's descendants. And that is why, if we look and see, later on, Cush brings forth Nimrod, and then the father brings a curse upon Nimrod because he wanted to build a Tower of Babel that goes to heaven. So in everything, we don't always like to read the genealogies, because the genealogies, we skip these genealogies and say, okay, let me read where there's reading again. But these genealogies make a lot of sense. Because when we read the genealogies give us the history of what we cannot understand unless we read it. So if you just look and see, I just want you to look and see. If you look at the sons of Shem in Genesis 10 from verses 22, and the sons of Shem, Elam, Ashur. Ashur is like from Assyria. And they now are supposed to be part of the promise of the Father that comes from the children of Shem. But they became almost like an enemy as well. But that's why the Father going to use them as an example. And so if you look and see, a lot of these, the genealogies, we understand. I mean, did you see their Sodom and Gomorrah? Mm-hmm. And Sodom and Gomorrah comes from who? It's going to come from the bloodline of Canaan. So, we see here how the Father already shows us from the beginning, and this is what I need you to understand, because if you do not get the revelation of exactly what happened in the beginning, we are not going to understand the reason why Yeshua had to come. Because understand, every one of these fruits of the 7 species of the land has to do with who? It has to do with Yeshua. And the attributes of what Yeshua has come to do. We've seen the pomegranate. We've seen the olive. We have seen the barley. We have seen how all these attributes have to do with Yeshua. And so when we get through this teaching, you will understand the significance of Yeshua and why the blood of Yeshua was so significant, and why does he speak about a new wine. Because if we do not understand the wine of the beginning, we are not going to understand the wine of the end. Because that's the foundation that he's laying for us to understand. So let's go to Genesis 9:20 to 25. Oh no, we've done that. Exodus 29:40. Because I want you to understand that in everything, we need to understand how Yeshua has fulfilled all these offerings that were being done. Okay, so in Exodus chapter 29 verse 40 it says, "And 1/10 of an ephah of flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of pressed oil and 1/4 of a hin of wine as a drink offering with 1 lamb." So there was a lamb and there was a drink offering that was being offered. And this drink offering is made up of the wine. So we understand that when the Father has the offerings at the altar, he has the offering that also comes of wine. So now we're going to look at Leviticus 23 for us to be able to understand that how did Yeshua become the drink offering for us? So in Leviticus chapter 23 from verses 12, it says, so we go back. Last week, remember, we covered the barley harvest. And Yeshua became the barley harvest as the first fruits offering of the sheaf that gets waved before the priest. So he says, speak to the children of Israel, and you say to them from verse 10, when you come into the land which I give you, and shall reap its harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the first fruits of your harvest to the priest. And ye shall wave the sheaf before Yahuwah for your acceptance. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest waves it. And so we explained that last week. And on that day, when you wave the sheaf, you shall prepare a male lamb, a year old, a perfect one as an ascending offering to Yahuwah. So we spoke about the fact that Yeshua became that perfect lamb, and he became the sheaf offering that resurrected, and then he went and offered the blood on the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant in heaven. And it says, and its grain offering, 2/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with oil, an offering made by fire to Yahuwah, a sweet fragrance, and its drink offering, and 1/4 of a hin of wine. So he also becomes this grain offering, and he becomes this wine offering too. Because it's interesting. Because before he goes to his death, he breaks bread and he drinks a cup. But it's interesting because we need to understand that this wine that is spoken of here is not going to be wine that will be fermented. Because remember, even Yeshua, for him to have become the perfect lamb, for him to be able to be the wine that was to be offered as well, how could there be fermentation if he was going to be able to become the first fruits offering as well, of the wave offering? And understand, we were busy with the feast of what? Unleavened bread. So no leaven was to be found at all. There would have been no leaven. So he couldn't have had leaven of fermented wine. Because if he would have had leaven of fermented wine, then how was he going to become that perfect offering of the wine for us? So now we're going to have a look and see in Leviticus how we will be able to know that there was no wine with fermentation, strong drink offered to the Father in his temple. And it's important that we have to establish this, because if we do not establish this, we are not going to understand the wedding at Canaan. We are not going to understand the scriptures that speak about wine and the difference between the wine of his judgment and the wine of righteousness. We're not going to understand. So let's go look at Leviticus chapter 10. We'll go back. Because you would say to me, yeah, but Natalia, how do you know that it's not wine that was fermented? How do you know? How do you know that the wine that was being offered by the priests when they came to bring their offering, how do you know that when they brought their cake made of fine flour, that the oil that was being offered would have been virgin oil? But how do we know that the wine would not have been wine that was fermented? Because the Bible just tells you wine. So when our mindset, if it says wine, what do we automatically think? Because in our language today, wine is fermented. Grape juice is not fermented. And that's the way we differentiate between the two. But our Bible doesn't differentiate between us. Doesn't differentiate between grape juice and wine. So how are we going to know the difference? But we know because the Father will give us the revelation in his word. So let's go look at Leviticus chapter 10. Now he speaks in Leviticus chapter 10 from verses 8. And he's speaking to Aaron. And he says, and Yahuwah spoke to Aaron saying, do not drink wine or strong drink, you nor your sons with you, when you come into the tent of appointment, lest you die, a law forever throughout your generations. So the priests were not allowed to drink wine or strong drink. Now listen to what he says here. As to make a distinction between the set apart and the profane, between the unclean and the clean, and to teach the children of Israel all the laws which Yahuwah has spoken to them by the hand of Moshe. So here we are clearly seeing the Father doesn't want them to drink a wine that is fermented. He doesn't want them to drink strong drink that is fermented, because everything that is taken back to fermented wine, and strong drink is going to be fermented, because it's the fermentation that brings the alcohol. And he's saying to make a distinction between what's set apart. So he's saying that fermented wine and strong drink is unclean to him. So now we're going to look at these words so that we can understand this clearly. He says, do not drink wine or strong drink. And now he's going to tell you to see the difference between what is clean and what is unclean. What is set apart, what is not set apart. So now we're going to go look at that word that says to make the distinction between set apart. That word set apart is the word holy, which is the word in Hebrew, kadosh. So to make a difference between that which is kadosh. And that word kadosh is the word holiness. It is the word apartness. It is the word sacredness. It is the word separateness. It is the word sacred. It's sacred. It's sanctity. It's consecrated. It's dedicated. It's hallowed. It's holy. It's holiness. It's saint. It's a sanctuary. Wow. We are to become a sanctuary. It's consecrated. It's sanctified. It's dedicated. It's to be holy. It's to be separate. It's to be set apart. It's to be consecrated. It's to be devoted. It's to be clean. It's to be ceremonially and morally clean. It's to be purified, and it's to be sanctified. Yo. So, if we are drinking fermented wine, then he talks about the unclean. So, let's look. Let's just look a little bit deeper at this to be sanctified first, because I need you to understand kadosh. I need you to understand holiness, because he's saying to distinguish between the holy and the profane. So what is holy is sanctified. It's set apart. So to be sanctified means to be set apart unto Yahuwah, and being set apart from all else and dedicated to Abba Yahuwah's use. Just like these priests were. The concept of holiness, now listen to what the concept of holiness is. The concept of holiness is derived from this, that what is set apart unto Yahuwah is not contaminated by the corruption of the world. So it is not contaminated by the corruption of the world. So, I want you to hear very clearly. Wine that is fermented has what? Leaven. And Yeshua said, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees, because leaven is seen as sin. So at the end of the day, we are to be set apart from the sin of the things of the world. So if the world drinks wine, if the world drinks alcohol, then where are we, as his set apart holy priests, supposed to do that? We are going to understand this clearly, because I am tired already of the discussions amongst the Torah movement people that say, no, but wine is allowed because Yeshua drank wine, and because, okay, we are going to do this teaching. And when we're finished, you are going to decide who you're going to be. Because at the end of the day, a priest was not allowed to drink wine. And if you want to be his holy priesthood of the 144,000 set apart bride unto him, then you will decide whether you're going to be drinking alcohol and wine or not. It's your choice. Because this is all about choice. Because today, we are going to have to establish, first and foremost, what's clean and unclean in the Father's eyes. before we can understand the new wine that needs to come. So now listen. The concept of holiness is derived from this, that what is set apart unto Yahuwah is not contaminated by the corruption of the world and its influence. So now I'm going to say something else to you. When you add yeast to wine, you change its identity. You change its structure. You change the essence of what it is. Where it's supposed to be a nice sweet juice, you're actually changing its molecular structure. Do you understand? Do you understand how deep that is? So, what is the enemy's goal for our lives? To contaminate our bloodline so that we can have a serpent seed bloodline that uncovers our nakedness, that we are a sinful people, not set apart unto the Father, so that we can have a serpent seed in our bloodline, and so that we can be those that are contaminated, so that we are not set apart unto the Father, so that the Father doesn't see us as clean, but sees us as unclean, which is exactly what the serpent seed is, which is the mixed seed. And that's what we need to understand. So, to have sanctification, it requires us to choose to set ourselves apart from everything that is worldly, and would keep us from being dedicated, pure, holy, consecrated for the service of Abba Yahuwah. Because the priests had to be set apart, consecrated, holy, unto service to Yahuwah. So, what I say to you is, you can drink your wine all you want, but you're not going to be a consecrated, set apart, holy vessel to be used for His purposes and use. You cannot be. Because you are unclean. But we go deeper. We're going to go deeper. So let's look and see. Profane. Let's look at the word profane, which is the word kul. Kul. Profaneness means it's profane. It means it's common. Now, if you're going to continue to drink your alcohol, if you're amongst a bunch of people of the world and they see you drinking alcohol, what sets you apart from the world? I ask you that question. You are as common as what they are. You blend in like they do. What makes you stand out from them? So if you're having your feasts, okay, and you invite people of the world to come and partake of your feast, or if you invite Christians to come partake of your feast, the feasts of, say for example, you're having a feast of Sukkot, and now you want to bring the Christians in, and some Christians have had the revelation that they're not to drink alcohol. There's many. I was one of those. I don't understand why Torah people do this, because when I got saved more than 20 years ago, the very first thing that the Father took away from me was my cigarettes and my alcohol. That's the very first thing. I got up from the floor and I realized, wait a second, I've just received this Holy Spirit. So if He's holy living in me, then how am I going to drink alcohol? I'm going to intoxicate this Holy Spirit. I mean, please, hear my sweet, innocent mindset of a new reborn Christian. If I'm going to drink alcohol, I'm going to intoxicate this sweet, beautiful spirit, the Ruach of Yahuwah that's just been put within me. And at the same time, if I'm going to smoke my cigarette, how do I smoke my cigarette if inside of me is living the pure, set-apart Ruach of Yahuwah? So in my mind it was like, I'm going to intoxicate it with my smoking and my drinking. I cannot be doing it. And straight away, I got up from that floor and that thing came to an end. No one needed to tell me that I wasn't to smoke or drink anymore. Why? I received the true Ruach of Yahuwah. I didn't get saved in a Christian church. I didn't go listen to a pastor preaching to me. I got saved in the Catholic Church. There was no pastor preaching to me. As a matter of fact, there was a lot of doctrines of demons preaching to me. About doctrines of demons in the Catholic Church. But the Ruach of Yahuwah, who is the true Ruach of Yahuwah, convicted me of my sin and said, you can't be doing this anymore. And that's what my mindset told me. Now imagine this. Imagine you as a brand new, or you as in your Torah movement, you now go invite Christians to your Torah gathering, and now you offer them wine. What are you doing? And then you want to think you are more set apart than them? You got a problem. Because we have not understood set apartness and holiness and profanity before the Father. So he says, commonness. You will not be common. You will not act like the people of the world. You will not behave like the people of the world. Profane means you are unholy. Profane means you are common. Profane means you pollute. Profane means you desecrate. That's a strong word. Profanity is to desecrate. Profanity is to defile. It's to make common. It's to violate. It's to dishonor. It's to treat as common. It's to prostitute. So, what bride are you? Are you the bride of the harlot that is sitting in Revelation 18 with a cup of wine and the church is drinking from her wine? And he says, come out of her, my people. She's the prostitute of the book of Revelation. And so what are we drinking from? And that is why we have to paint a clear picture here. This word profane is the same word that he uses what we do to his name. We profane his name. Which means we make it common, we violate it, which means we treat it as common, which means we dishonor it, which means we make it unholy by calling him Lord and God all the time. You profane his name. We make it unclean. That word is tameh. And that word is to be making it impure, to pollute it, to defile, to make it idolatrous. Something that is unclean is idolatrous. So, if you eat your pork and you put it into your body, you are idolatrous. Imagine that. So, as he says it about food, now understand, this is the thing that I love this morning when he opened this up to me. He says, you see, my child, my people are always on about what they eat, but they're not on about what they drink. I address drinking and eating. When I sat at the table, I broke bread and I drank the cup. I dealt with both. But we want to deal with the unclean eating food, but we don't want to deal with the unclean drinking. We don't want to deal with that. But today, we're going to understand this very clearly because there's no between the lines here, because we're looking at exactly what this says. So he says now, where he says, so to make a distinction between what is set apart is kadosh, is holy, profane, which is kaul, and kaul means commonness, unholy, it means violate, it means to prostitute, and between the unclean, so the unclean is the tameh, which is the impure, which is the pollute, which is the defile, which is idolatry, which is ceremonially unclean, which is to profane. Then there's the word tahor. So you hear about tameh. Tameh is unclean and tahor is clean. And that word tahor is pure. So do you see? He says, be holy as I'm holy. Does the Father not say in His word, be holy as I'm holy? Be kadosh as I'm kadosh. So if He says be kadosh, He means be clean. He says be pure, be clean, be ceremonially, morally, ethically pure. Be cleansed,
Be bright. Imagine, the word clean means to shine. It means bright. So how are you going to shine if you're still drinking your wine? How are you going to shine? Because he says it's unclean. And only that which is clean is going to shine. Only that which is clean is going to be pure. Only that which is clean is unadulterated. Only that which is clean is innocent and holy unto him, which means it is kadosh unto him. Yeah, this is deep. So now, let's look at Deuteronomy 14. Because everybody uses Deuteronomy. Oh, wait. Before we go there, sorry, I just want to quickly finish the scripture. It says, and to teach the children of Israel the laws of Yahuwah. So listen to what he says. To make the distinction between unclean and clean, and to teach the children of Israel all the laws which Yahuwah has spoken to them by the hand of Moshe. And remember what he said just before. Lest you die a law forever throughout your generations. So you must understand, throughout your generations, this law of you not being able to profane yourself, of you not bringing anything that's unclean into his temple, was a law forever throughout his generations. Yeah, we're still there. Now I'm now going to go to Deuteronomy 14. I needed to just make sure that we bring that we just make a point of understanding that there. That it's a law forever throughout your generations. Because you're going to say to me, but Natalia, we don't have a temple, so we're not priests. Don't worry, we're going to go there. So, Deuteronomy 14, listen to what he says in Deuteronomy 14. You are the children of Yahuwah, your Eluah. Do not cut yourselves, nor shave the front of your head for the dead. Now listen to what he says. So is this who you want to be? For you are a set-apart people. So he's just told you, you are to be a clean, set-apart people, which is a kadosh people. You are a kadosh, set-apart people to Yahuwah, your Eluah. And Yahuwah has chosen you to be a people for himself. So if you want to be a chosen people unto himself, then you better understand the difference between clean and unclean. You better understand the difference between tamei and tahor. You better understand the difference between profane and set apart kadosh. And he says, you are a treasured possession above all the peoples who are on the face of the earth. And then straight after, he says, do not eat what is abominable. So he's just proclaimed who they are. And now he's telling them, do not eat what is abominable before me. And now he starts to give you what's clean and what's unclean in what you eat. So there he was giving you what's clean and unclean in fermented wine. And yeah, he's giving you clean and unclean in what you eat in Leviticus 14. But we are so quick as the children of Abba Yahuwah, that are the Messianic believers in Torah, to say, but we don't eat any pork. We don't. Excuse me! Do you know that the fermented wine is made with pork? Elsie went and did a thing on this, and there was even a little thing that came out that says they use the pork in the gelatine of the pork in the wine. But then we don't eat it. But then we drink the wine that has still got it in there. And then we drink the wine that is fermented, that he says, you shall not bring it into my temple. Okay? So now we're going to see what is set apart and what is sanctified. Because, we understand. I just wanted to show you that he tells you what to eat, what's clean and unclean. Now he tells you that drinking this is unclean, and you're not to bring it into my temple. I want to ask you, does he have any unclean animal being offered as a sacrifice in his temple? Okay, so we understand that much. Nothing unclean is going to be offered on his temple on an altar. So let's go to 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 3 to 5. Thessalonians 4, verses 3 to 5. Now listen to what he says. For this is the desire of Alua, your set apartness, that you should abstain from whoring. So he wants set apartness, that each one of you should know how to possess his own vessel in set apartness and respect. So our own vessels are to be set apart. 1 Thessalonians 4 from verses 3 to 5. Verse 4 says that each one of you should know how to possess his own vessel in set apartness and respect. So at the end of the day, we are to respect our bodies, because we are going to look that our bodies are the temple of Abba Yahuwah. And he wants set apartness in our temples, like he wanted set apartness in his holy temple. He doesn't have a temple anymore, but we are going to establish that he does have a temple on this earth. And we are going to become that temple. Not in passion of lust, like the nations who do not know Alua. So the nations will lust, and you are going to see this. Because when we unfold this teaching, you are going to see how the nations are going to go into the streets, and they're going to lust after their wine, and they're going to crave for their wine, because that's how they make their lives merry. The wine is to make merry. Now if you look at verse 7, it says, for Alua did not call us to uncleanness, but in set apartness. So, if he's called us not in uncleanness, he did not call us to be tamei. He did not call us to be impure, polluted, defiled, to be idolatrous by what we put in our temple, by being unclean by the foods that we eat, and unclean by what we drink. He didn't want that. Then we look at Hebrews 12. So just go a little bit forward to Hebrews 12, verses 14. Hebrews 12 says, pursue peace with all, and pursue apartness. That word apartness is kadosh, holiness, set apartness, which is consecration, which is to be consecrated, to be holy, to be devoted, to be clean, to be ceremonially, morally clean, to be purified and to be sanctified, without which no one will see the Master. So if you do not become a sanctuary, which is the word kadosh, so let's put there, pursue peace with all, and pursue to become a sanctuary, without which no one shall see the Master. Pursue consecrated, pursue cleanliness, pursue kadosh, pursue set apartness, pursue to be sanctified, with which if you don't do that, you are not going to see the Father, because you have to become a sanctuary for Him. And now we're going to look at 1 Corinthians 6. So let's go to 1 Corinthians chapter 6. Okay. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, we're going to start at verse 9. Do you not know that the unrighteous shall not inherit the reign of Abba Alua? So the righteous we've covered when we did the whole teaching of the pomegranate. We've covered righteousness. Righteousness is to keep ways of Torah. Righteousness is to obey His commands. To be righteous is to love Him, obey His commands, walk as He walked, just like Noah was righteous, by obeying the Father. So do you not understand that those that are unrighteous will not inherit the reign of Alua? Do not be deceived. Neither those who whore, nor idolatrous. Did we just read that unclean is an idolatrous person? So an idolatrous person, which is an unclean person, which is one who's drinking alcohol and wine, with fermented wine, they are called those that are idolatrous. Nor adulterers, nor Ephraimites, nor homosexuals, nor thieves, nor greedy of gain, nor drunkards. And then I say to you, how many glasses do you drink before you finally drunkard? If you're not in your right, we always want to see drunkardness is when we finally had one too many where we're falling over. If you're not in your right frame of mind, you've already of a reprobate mind, which means you allow the enemy to come into your mind. You are not sound of mind. And we are called to be sound of mind. And if we have one too many glass, look, I take myself as example. If I drink one glass of wine, just one, already in the time when I used to drink wine, that's why I never drank wine. Because one glass of wine would go to my mind, would go to my head. I already wasn't thinking straight. But some people can handle it and some people don't. So where do you draw the line? Where do you draw the line then? So my argument is, some people say, yeah, but it's a case of you're controlling it. So myself, if I used to drink one glass of wine, it already went to my head. So then what, am I only supposed to have a few sips? Where do you draw the line? Where someone else can have 3 glasses and they're going to stand. Because the problem is not the wine. The problem is the fermentation that is in it. If we get away from what was the error that's there from the beginning, we understand the truth. So now he turns around and says, no revilers, no swindlers shall inherit the reign of Eloah, and such were some of you. But you were washed, but you were set apart. There you go. You were set apart. You were now made kadosh. But you were declared right in the name of the Master Yahushua by the Spirit of our Eloah. All is permitted to me. You see? All is allowed. No one's going to say to you, you can't drink wine. Go ahead. You can be profane. You can be unclean. You're just not going to be one that's going to be a set-apart priest to the Father. No one's telling you that you can't drink it. No one's going to tell you that you might not go to heaven. What it's saying is you're not going to be part of the kingdom reign. But you may be still going to make heaven. But you're not going to be part of those that are going to reign and rule with him. All is permitted me, but not all do profit. All is permitted me, but I shall not be under authority of any. Foods for the stomach and stomach for foods, but Eloah shall destroy both of it and them. Do you see? Food for the stomach, wine for the stomach. That people that want to say a little wine is good for the stomach. Really, the little wine that's fermented wine, I don't think so. Because he called it profane. And the body is not for whoring, but for the master, and the master for the body. And Eloah was raised up, and Eloah has raised up the master, and shall also raise up through his power. Do you not know? Now here we go. Now listen carefully. Do you not know that your bodies are the members of Messiah? Shall I then take the members of Messiah and make them members of a whore? Let it not be. So do you now take that which is belonging to Messiah and make it a member with the whore of Babylon? The one that is going to be seated, that talks about the whore of Babylon in Revelation chapter 18, that's drinking the cup of the wine. Who are you attached to? Are you attached to the Messiah and the new wine that we're going to look into in more detail? Or are you going to be attached to a fermented wine that's got to do with sin and the mixed seed and the seed of the serpent? Where you will be uncovered and you will be naked before the Father. And that's why he will say, go buy yourself some salt for your eyes so that you can see your nakedness actually. Or do you not know that he who is joined to a whore is one body? So the one who joins himself to a whore becomes one body with them. And this is important that you understand, because as we're going to come to being able to uncover this thing about this wine, we are going to have to understand this whore of Babylon. that is wanting to give us this intoxicated wine of the doctrines of demons that we've been taught? Or do you not know that he who is joined to a whore is one body? Or, for he says, the two shall become one flesh. So you see, we become one with this. That's why he says, come out from among them. That's why he says, I do not want you to have mixed seed. That's why he says, how can you fellowship with them? We're going to get there. And he who is joined to the master is one spirit. So now do you understand? Look how amazing this is. Now look at what he says. Flee whoring. Every sin that a man does is outside the body, but he who commits whoring sins against his own body. Or do you not know that your body is the dwelling place of the set-apart spirit? Okay, make a note of that. Do you not know that your body is the dwelling place of the set-apart spirit of the Ruach HaKodesh, who is in you, which you have from Eloah, and you are not your own? Now understand, and how amazing is this? I did not know anything about the scripture. I didn't even have, for that matter, I'd only just bought a Bible the day that I got saved. I owned a Bible that I couldn't even find, so I came to this course without even having a Bible. So I didn't know anything about this Bible. But when the Ruach came upon me, and I received the true Ruach of Yahuwah, so I say to you, what have you received? Because when I received the true Ruach of Yahuwah, and I lay on that floor, immediately I knew I couldn't continue my drinking and my smoking. Why? Because now I've had the Holy Ruach of Yahuwah come and live within me. So if he's living within me, how am I going to contaminate him with my drinking and my smoking? Do you understand? I didn't even understand, but who convicted me was the true Ruach of Yahuwah to say, you can't take another drink and you can't take another cigarette, and I didn't. I got up from that floor and I never had another cigarette nor another drink in my life since then. And the only time that I've had it put to my lips was when my brother tried to torment me by me going out, and he told me, oh, what do you want to drink? I said, I'll have water, thank you. And he brings me this gin and tonic, and I put it to my lips and I spat it out because it was in the dark. I didn't even know what it was. And he thought it was so funny. But I spat it out to show him, you think you're funny, but I don't think you're funny. And then in Israel, if you take communion, there, just about every one of those Messianic places give you wine, real fermented wine. And so there's been times that I put it to my lips and then I refuse to take it because it's wine. Now it's even less, because now I wouldn't even have it, because at the end of the day with my Nazarite vow, I can't even have it anyway. Yeah, sure. Pass it down. And so, yeah, we understand when he turns around and he says, or do you not know that your body is the dwelling place of the set-apart spirit who is in you, which you have from Eloah? You are not your own. So you've been bought with a price. For you were bought with a price. Therefore, esteem Eloah in your body and in your spirit, which are of Eloah. So now I understand. This is the kind of thing we need to teach. Now I must understand something. I'm not here to judge any person. If a person is still struggling with smoking, if a person is still struggling with drinking, then you have to come to the Father and you have to say, Father, I bring you the scripture and I say to you, according to the scripture, you have come and dwelt within me. Because when I received the Ruach of Yahuwah, you are dwelling within me, and I don't want to profane you anymore. I want to be set apart for you. I don't want to be able to be a whore for you anymore. I want to be a set apart vessel unto you. And now listen carefully. If he did not want, if he tells you, yeah, you become the dwelling place of his Ruach HaKodesh, means you become the temple. You become the tabernacle that carries his presence. So if you become the tabernacle that carries his presence, then I say to you, if he did not want wine, fermented, strong drink, nor alcohol, any form of alcohol, the priests were not allowed to bring it into his set-apart holy place, then how the heck are we going to do that? if he did not want a pig to be offered on his altar, in his temple, if he did not want a pig, if he did not want an ostrich, if he did not want any unclean food in that temple of his, then neither does he want it in this temple of where his spirit dwells. If he did not want alcohol in that temple that he had, and he said to the priest, it will be a law forever throughout your generations to make the distinction between what is clean before me, between what is unclean before me. So if he sees wine that is fermented, and if he sees alcohol that is strong drink, he sees it as unclean, and he doesn't want it in his temple, then what the heck are we doing putting it in our house? What are we doing? Because we do not understand the difference between what is clean and unclean, because we only saw clean as being clean foods, unclean foods. But we don't put alcohol there. But Noah brought it in, and already from there it brought destruction. And what happens then in Sodom and Gomorrah when there is the destruction going on there? And then what happens? Lot's wife goes, looks back, she gets struck by, becomes a pillar of salt, and then what do the daughters of Lot do? And let's just go back to wine again. I didn't even bring that scripture in, but it's coming to my mind now. What does Lot's daughters do? Make him drunk with wine, so that they could become pregnant with children. They made him drunk, became pregnant with 2 children. That is the enemies of Israel today. The Moabites and the Edomites. No promise for them either. Because according to, if you go read the prophet Obadiah, Edom and Moab, he will destroy. He will annihilate the entire Edom and Moab. So everything that comes out of that alcohol, which is where Ham went and looked upon his upon his father, his son gets cursed. And now the 2 daughters of Lot get cursed, that they become the enemies of Israel, and then there's no promise for them. There's destruction. So tell me, you think it looks at wine as just being a little, it's not a serious thing. And then someone wants to come sit and tell me that my Messiah went and turned water into fermented wine? Oh, you've got to be joking. I will rebuke that person. From here to thy kingdom come. But it's okay, because you know what? He's so faithful. Because this morning, in the early hours of the morning, he gave me the revelation. So that never again do we need to be confused. Because the next time someone's going to bring that, I'm going to say, let's sit down. Let's read scripture and let's understand. Let's start at the beginning. Let's see what was contaminated and let's see what's been restored. And when we understand that, we understand everything. So let's go look a little bit more. Let's see what we've just read now. Go one page before. Go to 1 Corinthians 3. 1 Corinthians 3, 16 and 17. Look at what he says. He says it again. So he doesn't just say it once. He speaks it twice. Here in Corinthians, do you not know that you are the dwelling place of Eloah, and that the spirit of Eloah dwells within you? If anyone destroys the dwelling place of Eloah, Eloah shall destroy him. For the dwelling place of Eloah is set apart, which you are. Did we just read set apartness? We just read set apart. That's why he says be set apart, be kadosh as I'm kadosh, be holy as I'm holy, because set apart means holy. So he says, so you are holy. And if you are going to destroy my dwelling place, I'm going to destroy you. This is not a Mickey Mouse scripture. If anyone destroys the dwelling place of Eloah, which is this body that he's dwelling in, for the dwelling place of Eloah is set apart, which you are. So if his spirit is living within you, then you become a tabernacle that is carrying his presence, and you become set apart because of his holy Ruach HaKodesh. That's what I can't understand. You received the Kadosh Spirit, the Kadosh Ruach of Yahuwah. which means He's a Holy Spirit. He's not going to make you shiver and shake like a leaf on the floor, and you get up from that floor, and you're still doing your balagan. You're still carrying on like the world. It's impossible. Because then I have to question, what Ruach did you receive? Because the Ruach of Yahuwah is a set-apart, holy Ruach of Yahuwah. He's Kadosh. And therefore, we have... that closeness to the blaspheming Him by not allowing Him to do the work that He's supposed to do. The Ruach of Yahuwah is to do a work. And you know what the work is? To make you holy. Because the Father is holy. And if it's the Spirit of Yahuwah that is living within you, then you have to be holy. So what is the Ruach going to do? The Ruach is going to keep working in you, both to will and to do the Father's pleasure, which is to be holy. But when we resist it, what are we doing? We are not willing to die in our flesh. So now we're going to see the destruction of wine, so that we can look at a couple of scriptures to be able to understand, is this wine, this fermented wine, is it really good? Let's go look at Proverbs 20 verse 1. So now do you want to be a wise virgin? Let's look and see. Wine is a scoffer, strong drink a brawler, and whoever is led astray by it is not wise. So should we look again at the wise virgins and the unwise virgins? What are the unwise virgins busy with? Are they maybe still those drinking the wine that's making them unwise? Because they're not being able to be sober-minded in the spirit. How can you be intoxicated with wine and then be sober-minded with the Ruach of Yahuwah? I ask you that question. How do the two dwell in the same body? Okay. Let's look at Proverbs 23. Proverbs 23 from verses 19. We're going to read a few scriptures over here because we are trying to build, we need to understand, if we're going to continue to associate with people that are continuing to drink and drink and drink, what do we do with ourselves in the process? Are they going to start to contaminate us? It's just a little bit of wine. You know what? It's nothing wrong with that. So let's read from verses 19. Hear, my son, and be wise. Once again, wisdom has to do with what? Be wise. Hear, my son, and be wise. And guide your heart in ways. Be not among heavy drinkers of wine. Or with gluttonous eaters of meat. We won't even go there. For the drunkard and the glutton became poor, and the slumber puts rage on a man. Listen to your father who brought you forth, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy the truth and do not sell it, wisdom and discipline and understanding. And the father of the righteous greatly rejoices, and he who brings forth a wise one delights in him. Let your father and your mother rejoice, and let her who bore you exult. My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes watch my ways. For a whore is a deep pit, and a strange woman is a narrow well. She too lies in wait for her prey. Now you will understand when I'm going to bring to you Revelation, which is the church that this is attached to, then you're going to understand. It's going to intoxicate you. You understand? This doctrines of demons comes to lure you into their little trap. And a strange woman is a narrow well. She too lies in wait for a prey, and increases the treacherous among men. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has contentions? Who has complaints? Who feels hurt without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Those staying long at the wine. Those staying long at the wine. Those going in to search out mixed wine. Now, make a note of that. Because that's the mixed seed of the mixed wine that's going to be a little bit of this with a little bit of that of the doctrines of demons, which is what? A little bit of Christianity with a little bit of Torah movement, and you've got a little bit of everything, and everything goes. This mixed wine. We are not going to have mixed wine. The mixed wine, do not look on the wine when it is red, when it gives its color in the cup, as it flows smoothly. In the end, it bites like a snake. There's your serpent. Do you see your serpent? Your serpent that made you just indulge in this, that's going to make you feel so good. It's going to make you merry. It's going to make you happy. Just indulge in a little bit. It entices you. It brings you in. Just like the serpent snake, to bring you into the doctrines of demons that tells you that wine is okay to drink. Oh, just go and drink this little bit of wine. There's nothing wrong with it. The Bible says it's good for your stomach. The Bible tells you Jesus drank wine. Oy vavoy. But that's not what my Bible is telling me. Yeah. In the end, it bites like a snake. And it stings like an adder. Yo! My goodness. Let's look at Proverbs 31. So you see, it's even telling you over here, do not associate with these people. Be not among heavy drinkers of wine. My goodness, I sat in Israel with a rabbi that was giving not only the wine, but giving the strong drink to these youngsters, these Talmudim, his Torah little disciples that was his Talmudim. They left there drunk out of their mind. Because he passed his little flask around, and whatever the rabbi does, they do. So if the rabbi drinks himself, now the rabbi can handle it. He's not 18 years of age. So the rabbi is drinking his vodka, and drinking his vodka, he's sharp, and he's drank his wine, he's sharp. But those little youngsters, of those little Torah, little students of the yeshiva, that are now sitting at the table of the Shabbat table, the little flask of vodka, more little flask of vodka, and then a little bit more wine that we drink, and they left there on their ear. Very merry. Oh, for sure, they were singing away, falling over their feet. And that's why I say, if we're going to start associating with these kind of people, what will eventually contaminate us? A little leaven leavens the whole bunch. A little leaven leavens the whole lump. That's why he says, beware of the leaven of the Pharisees. Because it's going to contaminate you. And that's why I say, we've got to be very careful the teachings that we listen to. Because at the end of the day, it will contaminate us. So Proverbs 31:47, it says, not for sovereigns, O Lemuel. Sovereigns are kings. So he's saying, kings, not for sovereigns to drink wine. Oh my goodness. Now the sovereigns are being told not to drink wine. Not for sovereigns, O Lemuel. We are in Proverbs 31 verses 4. Not for sovereigns, O Lemuel. Not for sovereigns to drink wine. Not for princes to desire strong drink, lest they drink and forget what is inscribed, and pervert the right of all the afflicted. Give strong drink to him who is perishing, and wine to those embittered in being. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his trouble no more. So you see? So who are the ones that are going to drink the wine? The ones that want to forget their problems. And that's why they become alcoholics in the end. They keep drinking. Proverbs 31 verses 4 to 7. And that's why he says, let him drink and forget his poverty. Because you see, why do people become alcoholics? Most people who become alcoholics, if you actually go and look, the root is not the drinking. The root is a hurt or a pain or whatever it is that is there. And they turn to the alcohol as the source of deliverance for the pain that is there. So whatever your addiction is, your addiction is not the problem. It's the root that's the problem. And the root is a soul thing. It's a root. The root that is there is something that is there, that is in your soul, man, in your mind, in your will, in your emotions, where you are hurting. And now you are trying to take this to forget your problems. How many people were lining up at those bottle stores the minute our nation lifted up the bans on the bottle stores? They queued up from 3 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock in the morning, they were already queuing. Why? Because now they've got so much depression in their lives. They're going through so many things. They've lost their job. They've lost their income. They've lost their income, but yet they got money for wine. They got money for alcohol. Because that's a way of forgetting their problems. And we're going to see in the scripture how this is going to happen in the last days. We had a taste in this nation of what is going to come. Now we're going to go to 1 Timothy 3. Because we're going to see leaders are not to drink wine. So if you are a leader and you're drinking wine, why would the Father have a priest? What is the priest symbolic of? The priest is symbolic of the person that is to be able to teach the people the Father's Torah and the Father's ways. That is the priests. Who is teaching the Father's ways and the Father's Torah to the people? His priests. So now please tell me, are his priests supposed to have wine? So now we're going to go to 1 Timothy. 1 Timothy 3. We're going to read from verses 1. Trustworthy is the word. If a man longs for a position of an overseer, he desires a good work. So an overseer is going to be what? An overseer is going to be a leader. An overseer then should be blameless, the husband of one wife. Okay, that one we can go into too. Sober, sensible, orderly, kind to strangers, able to teach, not given to wine, no brawler, but gentle, not quarrelsome, no lover of silver. Wow. Now, how many of these leaders will teach, and it's all about money, it's all about silver, all about, they are the ones drinking, they are the ones with the prosperity teaching, they are the ones doing all of this. But God's telling you shouldn't be an overseer of his flock. If you love silver, if you are a lover of silver, and if you are one that likes wine, one who rules over his house well, having his children in subjection with all reverence. For if a man does not know how to rule his own house, how shall he look after the assembly of Elohim? Not a new convert, lest he become puffed up with pride and fall into judgment of the devil, because he's weak. And he should even have a good witness from those who are outside, lest he fall into the reproach of the snare of the devil. Likewise, attendants are to be reverent, not double-tongued, not given to much wine, not greedy for filthy gain. So these are supposed to be the ones that are supposed to be the true leaders. And that is why it says in the Torah that even for a king, he was not to acquire much wealth either. He was not to have many wives. And he was not to acquire much wealth. But Solomon did everything, and that's why you see Solomon did not have a prophet speaking into his life. And even though Solomon had all the wisdom, but in the end, he fell as a king. Because he was not keeping by ways of Torah. Okay, now we look at Titus 2:3. So just after Timothy, you get Titus. And now it talks for women. The older women likewise are to be set apart in behavior, so they don't run around loosely drinking. Not slanderers, not given to much wine, teachers of what is good. Titus 2 verse 3. So there again, they're not given to wine. Right, we're going to look at now Deuteronomy 29 verse 6. Where are we? Deuteronomy 29 verse 6. Okay. Deuteronomy chapter 29. Let's just have a look from the beginning. Let's start at verse 1. These are the words of the covenant which Yahuwah commanded Moshe to make with the children of Israel in the land of Moab, besides the covenant which he made with them in Horeb. Now go to verse 3. Your eyes saw the great trials, the signs, and those great wonders, but Yahuwah has not given you a heart to know, not given you a heart to know, and eyes to see, and ears to hear till this day. And I have led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your garments have not worn out on you, and your sandals have not worn out on your feet. Now listen to verse 6. You ate no bread and drank, because the bread that they ate was what? The manna that was given from heaven. They didn't eat bread. Now listen to what he says. You ate no bread and drank no wine, nor strong drink, so that you might know that I am Yahuwah your Lord. So them not drinking wine, them not eating the bread, was so that they could know the Father. So if they would have continued with the lust of the flesh, and this is important for you to understand, because remember, Yahushua becomes the bread of life. So he becomes the bread that is broken for us, and he becomes the wine that is poured out for us. And those were the two things that they never had in the wilderness. They never had no wine, strong drink, and the only food that they had was the manna that he gave them. That was not the bread. The bread was, they had this little cakes, it was like a coriander, tasted similar to like a coriander seeds, but it wasn't the bread that they were accustomed to. So Yahushua is going to become the bread of life, and he becomes the wine that is going to be poured out for us. And he becomes because all of this, that when he was taking them through the wilderness, he wanted them to see him and to know him. And they needed to know him and see him by being deprived of the lust of their flesh. So how the heck are we going to come to know the Father if we do not deprive the lust of our flesh? Do you understand? So at the end of the day, when the Father tells us to come away from something, it's because you're desiring him to know him more. How are you going to get to know him more when you do not want to lay it down? So, what do I do, Father? What do I do? Let's go. I'm going to finish off these scriptures, and then next week I'm going to continue with a new one. Sorry. Because we're now going to go and look into the prophetic things of what happened to Israel because of their pollution through the wine. Okay. So let's go to Isaiah chapter 5. Because in Isaiah chapter 5, we're going to look at a lot of scriptures in Isaiah to understand the prophetic. Because if we do not understand this prophetic, we will not understand what Yahushua has come to do for us. Okay. So we're going to read Isaiah chapter 5 from verses 1 to 24. It's a lot of scriptures, but here is important for us to understand the prophetic. So it starts and it says, please let me sing to the one I love, a song for my loved one regarding his vineyard. My loved one has a vineyard on a fertile hill. So you see, there is a loved one that has a vineyard. And this vineyard is supposed to be this beautiful new wine that's crushed grapes that he wants to drink from us. we are supposed to be this new wine that's crushed, that he can drink from. But we're going to see. And he dug it up and cleared it of stones and planted it with the choicest vine and built a watchtower in its midst and also made a winepress in it. And he waited for the yielding of grapes, but it yielded rotten ones. So he planted this vineyard, and he was expecting to have good fruit that was going to come from it, and instead it yielded rotten fruit. Sure. Listen to it then. And now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem, and man of Yehudah, please judge between me and my vineyard. What more could have been done to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Why, when I waited for the yielding of grapes, did it yield rotten ones? And now, please let me inform you what I am doing to my vineyard. To take away its hedge, and it shall be burnt. To break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. And that's what's going to happen. We are going to see the trampling of the winepress, and we will discuss that next week when we look in the book of Revelation. And I lay it waste, and it is not pruned or dug, and thorn bushes and weeds shall come up, and I command the clouds not to rain on it. For the vineyard of Yahuwah of hosts is the house of Israel. So now he tells you who this vineyard is. So the vineyard of Yahuwah of hosts is the house of Israel. And the man of Yehudah is his pleasant plant. He looked for right ruling, but see, oppression, for righteousness, but see, weeping. So he chose these set apart people that came from Yaakov, that became Israel, the olive tree, the branches that are supposed to yield this fruit, that's going to have to be beaten, that's going to have to be crushed to bring forth this olive oil. And now he's comparing again Israel to a vineyard. But this vineyard's fruit has become rotten because it's not even going to bear any juice at all. And he says, woe to those who join house to house, who add field to field, until there is no room, and you are made to dwell alone in the midst of the land. Because remember, the house of Israel became the prostitute. They were the ones who prostituted themselves. Not that Judah was any better, but the father did not divorce Judah, but the father divorced Israel. In my hearing, Yahuwah of hosts said, truly many houses shall be a waste, big and fine ones, without inhabitant. For 10 acres of vineyard yield 1 bath, and a homer of seed yields 1 ephah. Woe to those who rise early in the morning, pursuing strong drink, who stay up late at night, wine inflames them. So you see, this fruit became rotten. Why? Because he knew that they wanted this wine to intoxicate themselves with. That instead of them wanting the wine of the unadulterated pure juice, that's what he's looking for. Instead, he was going to get a fruit that they were going to turn it into fermented wine. Because they were going to want to desire the strong drink. And wine that inflames them. So let me tell you something. These people that are going to want their wine, the flames are going to come for sure. The flames of his judgment is coming. And the lyre and the harp, and the tambourine and the flute, and wine are in their feasts. But they do not regard the deeds of Yahuwah, nor see the work of his hands. So you see, they're having feasts, and they're having it with their intoxicated wine. And they do not understand the seasons and the times that we're in, and what is about to come. Judgment. Therefore, My people have gone into exile because they have no knowledge, and their esteemed men are starved, and their crowd dried up with thirst. And that is why Israel went into exile. And that is why that song there today, He will bring them back to their land. But He's first got to clean us up. He wants us to bear fruit. That's going to be the pure new wine. Therefore, now listen to what is happening here. And their esteemed men are starved, and their crowd dried up with thirst. Therefore, Sheol, which is Sheol is hell, has made itself wide and opened its mouth without law. Their splendor and their crowd and their uproar, and he who is exulting within her shall go down into it. So look and see. Hell is becoming bigger and bigger by those intoxicated by this wine that they are drinking from. That is becoming more and more. It's becoming bigger and bigger. And when you read the book of Esdras, we understand this because it talks about this hell and how it's enlarged with these people that do not keep his ways, that will not keep his Torah. And man is bowed down, and mortal man humbled, and the eyes of the proud are humbled. Now you're going to understand something. The word anav, which is what a grape means in Hebrew. So the word in a Hebrew, anav, A-N-A-V, anav. That word, anav, is the same word. There's two words in Hebrew for anav. One is grape, the other one is humble. Humble. So the one who is willing to be crushed is the humble one. So that's why he says, a man is bowed down, and mortal man humbled, and the eyes of the proud are humbled. Why? Because if he becomes a grape, he will allow himself to be humbled. He will allow himself to be crushed. But Yahuwah of hosts is exalted in judgment, and the set apart El is set apart in righteousness. And the lambs shall feed in their pasture, and strangers shall eat in the waste places of the fat ones. Woe to those who draw crookedness, the cords of falsehood. Important to understand that, because the wine that we are drinking of, the fermented wine, is the falsehood of the doctrines of the demons that has been given to us by the false prophets. And we are going to look at that in the next few scriptures. Woe to those who draw crookedness with cords of falsehood and sin as with wrong ropes, who are saying, let me hurry, let him hasten his work, so that we see it. And let the counsel of the set-apart one of Israel draw near and come, so that we know. Now, make a note of the scripture, because that is exactly what these false prophets are coming. That's what they say. Let him hurry up and come. Let him hasten his work, so that we can see it. Let the counsel of the set-apart one of Israel draw near and come, so that we may know. So the prophets are saying, let Yeshua come. And they're telling you, Yeshua is coming, Yeshua is coming. But what is coming before he comes? So they are trying to hasten this up. Now we look. Woe to those who call evil good. Now we read the next verse, because this is what they're busy doing. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. So they will be saying to you, no destruction is coming your way. No destruction is going to come your way. No, we are going to be blessed. We are going to prosper. And there's no destruction coming. But at the end of the day, this is exactly what is coming. They are speaking that which they say, they call evil good. So that which is evil in the eyes of the Father becomes good to them. So now imagine people that turn around and say that Yeshua drank wine that was fermented wine. And they call that good? Yeah, he says, woe to those people. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and clever in their own sight. Woe to the mighty to drink wine and brave men to mix strong drink. So you see, we look at these mighty prophets. I mean, Elsie will tell you, one of the first time she went to Israel, she encountered this mighty prophet in Israel, and she saw her sitting at a table at the Shabbat polishing a whole bottle of wine on her own. She was horrified. She couldn't believe it. But that's what's done. So it's okay. Woe to the mighty to drink wine and to the brave men to mix strong drink, who declare the wrong for a bribe. And the righteousness of the righteous they turn aside from him. So they are bringing in all this bribery and corruption and all this rubbish. And instead of teaching us the righteous ways and the right ways of the Father, what are they teaching us? Therefore, as a tongue of fire devours the stubble. And what was the word that the Father released through my mouth Father said to me, you are to dress in orange to represent the fire. And what did he show us as the moon was there? As we saw that moon come up, as the sun was setting, we saw the most beautiful orange-red fire in the sky of the sun setting, of the end of the day coming to an end. And then we got a moon rising for Sukkot of the new moon, because we got to have, not the new moon, the full moon, because it's always full moon at the time of Sukkot, because we're on the 15th day. And so now you've got the full moon coming up, and the full moon was red and then orange. And the Father said, my fire, that's going to be released. And I didn't know what was going to happen, that there was going to be a moon that was going to be red and orange. But that day, the Wednesday, when we were here, Father said to me, on Sukkot, on the Friday of Sukkot, you are to dress in orange to release my fire. So the Friday night I dressed in orange, and the Saturday I dressed in orange. And he said, release the fire. And he says, it's going to be the fire of my judgment upon those that are not walking in my ways, because my purging, consuming fire is going to come. And there will be the fire of my love that are going to experience. Those who are mine, set apart unto me, they're going to experience the fire of my love. That's a consuming fire that's going to burn with even greater passion for him. Praise you, Abba. Thank you, my King. Therefore a tongue of fire devours the stubble, and the flame consumes the chaff. Their root is as rottenness, and their blossom goes up like dust, because they have rejected the Torah of Yahuwah. There you go. So what have these prophets done? Rejected the Torah of Yahuwah of hosts, and despised the word of the set apart one of Israel. And they are the ones drinking the wine. So now we're going to see them let's just quickly go to Isaiah 28. Isaiah 28. We're going to see what the Father is speaking about in Isaiah 28. Isaiah 28 from verse 1. We're going to read from verses 1 to 10. Woe to the proud crown of the drunkards of Ephraim. And who is Ephraim? It was Israel. And we are the lost tribes of the house of Israel, which is a lot of these Christians running around. Woe to the proud crown of the drunkards of Ephraim, to the fading flower of its splendid comeliness, that is on the head of the fertile valley, to those who are overcome with wine. Here we go again. See Yahuwah as one who is strong and potent, like a downpour of hail. and a destroying storm, like a flood. Yahuwah is one who is a strong and a potent, like a downpour of hail and a destroying storm. The hail that's going to come in the time of the book of Revelation that's going to come. The hail that came at Exodus that's going to come again. Spoken of in the book of Revelation. Like a flood of mighty waters overflowing, who cast down to the earth with a hand. The proud crown of the drunkards of Ephraim is trampled underfoot. And we are going to read about that, because when we read in the book of Revelation, it says the winepress are full. They've been trampled and they are full. And the fading flower of its splendid comeliness that is on the head of the fertile valley, like the first fruit, before the summer, which when one sees it, he eats it up while it is still in his hand. In that day, Yahuwah of hosts is for a crown of splendor and a headdress of comeliness to the remnant of his people. So he's going to come with a crown of comeliness. And what does he give to those who overcome? The crown that's going to be given. Remember the pomegranate, the crown on the pomegranate, the book of Revelation chapter 3 that we talked about, the church of Philadelphia. Let no one take your crown. And when we spoke about the olive, where did we receive the crown? When we went through the crushing, church of Smyrna, tested and tried 10 days. Okay. And he's for the remnant of his people. And the spirit of right ruling to him who sits in right ruling. And strength to those who turn back the battle at the gate. So this is a battle going on here. Now listen to what he says. And these two have gone astray. Now look who's gone astray. Listen carefully. And these two have gone astray. Through wine and through strong drink, wandered about. Priest, prophet have gone astray. Through strong drink, they are swallowed up by wine. They wander about through strong drink. They go astray in vision. They stumble in right ruling. So now the visions that they tell you, and these good big prophetic things that they tell you, is coming from where? From their strong drink? From their wine? Where's it coming from? Do you see? They stumble in right ruling. Because instead of them bringing us back to right ruling, into righteous right rulings, they give us words that they say, thus says Yahuwah, that peace, peace. And they speak all these peace things. When there's no peace, when you hear peace, know that judgment is on your doorstep. For all tables shall be covered with vomit, no place without filth. Sure. The vomit from the drinking of the wine and their drunkenness. Because what do you do when you consume too much alcohol? You vomit. And you vomit and you vomit. It's terrible. Whom would he teach knowledge? And whom would he make to understand the message? Those weaned from milk. Those taken from the breasts. Because it's to the little babes that he's going to have to teach these things, because these ones that are the prophets and the priests that's already eating meat, they have become defiled. For it is command upon command, command upon command, line upon line, line upon line, here a little, there a little. Isaiah 56. Verses 11 to 12. Listen to what he says in Isaiah 56. And the dogs. So let's just quickly go a verse before. Let's read from verse 9. Now look what he says. The Master Yahuwah who gathers, from verse 8. The Master Yahuwah who gathers the outcasts of the house of Israel declares, I gather still others to him besides those who are gathered to him. That is the lost tribes of the house of Israel, and those are those being grafted in, according to Romans 11, that are being grafted in to the covenant that was made with the house of Israel. Now listen to what he says. All you beasts of the field come to devour, all you beasts in the forest. His watchmen are blind. His watchmen are blind. All of them, they have not known. All of them are dumb dogs, unable to bark, dreaming, lying down, loving to slumber. Okay? And the dogs have a strong appetite. They never have enough. And they are shepherds. They have not known understanding. All of them look to their own way. Every one of his own gain. Every one for his own gain. From his own end, saying, come, let me bring wine and fill ourselves with strong drink, and tomorrow shall be as today, even much greater. Hey, does that sound like our prophets and priests of the day of today? These blind watchmen, the ones who declare themselves watchmen, the prophet is supposed to be a watchman, who's supposed to be see the sword coming, who's supposed to be warning the people of the destruction coming. But the priests are the one who are supposed, and the pastors, the shepherds are the pastors that are supposed to be warning the flock, that are supposed to be teaching the flock the truth of his word, to come out of this strong drink and wine. But instead, they are after their own gain, they are after their own strong drink, and they say, tomorrow it's going to get even greater. Don't worry, we're going to prosper. South Africa is going to become even a better nation than it ever was before. Sure, I'm telling you. Isaiah, we're going to finish with this scripture. Isaiah chapter 24. This is not Mickey Mouse. This is not for the faint-hearted, this teaching. It's not. Isaiah 24 says, now listen to what he's going down. This is prophetic, and then from here we're going to speak. Then next week we're going to continue to see the prophetic things unfolding, and then we're going to bring in the new wine. Because we need to understand, this is all the wine of the defilement. There better be some new wine that needs to come. So let's look at what he says. The earth is completely emptied and utterly plundered. For Yahuwah has spoken this word. Now this is still to come. The earth shall mourn and wither. The world shall languish and wither. The haughty people of the earth shall languish. So the haughty are the ones that are not humble. And we understood today that the same word for wine is the same word for humble. So the haughty are the ones that are not humble. And they are these arrogant, proudful shepherds, these prophets, and these haughty people that are not humble. And they are not enough. They are not willing to go through a press, which is a grape. The anav is the same word for humble. It's the same word. Anav is the word for humble, and anav is the word for grape. It's the same word. And he says, the haughty people of the earth shall languish, for the earth has been defiled under its inhabitants. Now listen why. Because they have transgressed the Torah, changed the law, broken the everlasting covenant. So who are these haughty prophets telling you that you don't have to keep the Torah? That you don't have to do anything of the sort? They will be the same ones that are still drinking the wine. And the whole world is filled with this. Because the majority of the people on this earth are the ones that are drinking the wine, drinking the strong drink. They do not keep Torah, and they do not keep the covenant, and they have broken the everlasting covenant of the Father. Now look at what he says. Therefore a curse shall consume the earth, and those who dwell in it will be punished. Therefore the inhabitants of the earth shall be burnt, and few few men shall be left. Please make note in your Bible of few. The new wine shall fail. So you see, there was a new wine that came, but it failed. So we are going to see next week this new wine. The new wine shall fail. The vine shall languish. All those glad at heart shall sigh. The joy of the tambourine shall cease, and the noise of those rejoice shall end. The joy of the lyre shall cease. No more do they drink wine with a song. Strong drink is bitter to those who drink it. So you see, it's all going to come to a destructive end. The deserted city shall be broken down. Every house shall be shut. No one enters. Now listen to verse 11. There is crying for wine in the streets. All joy shall be darkened. The gladness of the earth shall be gone. They will cry through the streets for their wine of the doctrines of the demons that they have received, and nothing is going to console them in the end. And so next week we are going to see why this new wine shall fail. Because the new wine came. But why did it fail? Because what was the significance of the new wine? And that is why our Messiah said, you cannot put new wine in old wineskins. So we are going to understand next week what it means to have new wine. And who are these people that are going to drink from the new wine? So, Abba, my Father, I just want to praise and I thank you for this word, my King. Abba, my Father, I know that this is such a deep word, and I know that this is a word that is going to shake many to the core of their very being. But I praise and I thank you, Father, that now is an hour of truth. And I thank you that as we are in this time of celebrating your feasts, and we are in this time of understanding where we look to the signs of the things that you put in the heavens, where you told us to look for we need to look for the sun, the moon, the stars. We saw that moon reflecting on the day of Sukkot. It was showing us the red. It was showing us the orange of the fire. And we know that your fire of your judgment is about to be unleashed. And we will understand that this must be in order for you to be able to come. But woe to those false prophets who speak peace, peace when there is no peace. Woe to those false prophets that mock your true prophets that are speaking, and that they are your true watchmen that are warning. Because they see the sword coming. But those prophets make fun of them and speak up against them and say that they are prophets of doom and gloom. But Father, now is the time that you are going to start to separate the chaff from the wheat. And you are going to start to show us those who are yours from those who are not. And your truth is going to stand in the end, because only truth is going to set your people free. And so, Father, I want to repent on behalf of the people, myself included, Father, of where we have not kept that which was clean in your eyes, where we have not understood the difference between clean and unclean, where we have not understood the difference between profane and holiness, set apartness and profanity, and that we have become vessels where we have allowed ourselves to become defiled. That we have not understood what it truly means to carry a holy Abba Yahuwah within us. We have not understood that. We have not understood what it means to be kadosh. What it truly means to be set apart. You said, be kadosh as I am kadosh. Be holy as I'm holy. But we seem to think your holiness can just be put into our own mindsets and our own profane ways. Forgive us, Abba Father. Forgive us, because right from the beginning you have chosen and you wanted a holy priesthood. Already from the time of Noah, you wanted this. But already from there, the defilement of the serpent seed that comes within us because of sin, because we are so susceptible to sin. But I thank you, Abba, my Father, that you have given us the blood of Yeshua Mashiach, that you gave us Messiah Yeshua, who paid the ultimate price, who gave his body to fulfill every last little yud, little tittle that was to be fulfilled in him. Even in the sacrificial offerings, he fulfilled it. Because our Messiah didn't just become only a lamb. He became a wave offering. He became that cake and even the wine that would be offered on an altar. He fulfilled it all. Oh, Father, I can't even thank you enough for the gift that you have given us of your set-apart Son, and the gift that you have given us by giving us your own Ruach. And forgive us where we have just made it such a blasé thing to want to sit and have a little fleshly experience in our flesh. Oh, forgive us, Abba Father. How flippant we have been with your Ruach HaKodesh, where we have not understood the crushing that needs to come. We have not understood humility. We have not understood it. But I ask you, Father, that in the time that is ahead of us, I understand why we're going to need to be crushed like these grapes that need to be crushed. So that this choicest, pure wine of this new wine that needs to come forth, because behold, you are doing a new thing. And now is the hour, and you will have a set-apart people through whom you will do it. And I thank you, Father. May we be counted worthy to be one of those. And so I thank you for this word, Father. I thank you that you will continue to break it open to us, that we may have the deeper revelation and the understanding. And I thank you for you doing this for us in the hour that we are in. We do not want to be uncovered and naked like Noah was. We want to be those clothed with the splendor of your glory. And so I praise and I thank you, Father, that you alone will come and do a mighty work in us in this time of, as we celebrate this feast of Sukkot, Father. As we celebrate your feast with joy that bubbles up within us because of who you are, not because we need to be intoxicated by any wine at all. And so I praise and I thank you for this in Yahushua's name. Amen.